Now for the delete button. So we want to add something new every time we add a new item to the page. So render item right now creates all these spans for things. It seems like it needs to create a button too. How do you want to do it? How do we do it? How'd you do it, Madeline?
I called it delete button, and I did the whole const delete button equals document.create element button.
Okay, create the button. Add it as another child. Did you say you made another? That's what you called the variable. Did you make another method or?
No, I called it delete button.
Okay, so inside render item.
Yeah.
Okay, so sometime before we return it, add the delete button, something like this. So document.create element, and it is a button type element.
Set attributes if you want.
We could set attributes if we want. What kind of attributes did you set?
I did one I initially did a title for the screen or something that it would say delete.
So because you used an icon.
Yeah, I used an icon.
How'd you do the icon?
You did the delete button that set attribute src equals.
An image?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that'd be nice one of these days. Now, delete button, let's at least put some text on there that seems helpful, like text content equals, I don't know, remove or delete or whatever you want to do. We could real quick just do that much. Item.append child, delete button. Just to prove we can add the dang button. There it is. It's a little ridiculous looking, but by golly, it's there. Maybe we could add a class to it and style it so it's more delete-y. How about delete button dot class name or class list, excuse me, add, well, delete. Then I could do, say, button dot delete, any button with a class of delete. Get the background color of some sort of red. Let's say that's a nice sassy red. Should probably have white text then. It's a little more delete-y. Doesn't do anything yet. Who made it work? Emily?
Yeah.
How are you today?
Good.
I'm good, thanks. How'd you make it work?
The delete button.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty similar to that. I had the classless add, and then I did inner HTML for the name.
Okay. How about actually making it delete?
I did document.create selector and using the class list to have it, and then I did one click.
Okay. Anybody use add event listener? Let's see. That Jake. What do you think? How did you do add event listener? Thanks, Emily.
Well, after I created the button, I added an event listener, and then for the event, I had it as a function, and I created a function later on in the object,
Okay.
in the app object.
Okay.
To handle the deleting.
Okay. So we've got a delete button here. While we're doing everything else to it, we could say delete button dot add event listener. The event we're looking for is click. And the function doesn't exist yet, but it'll probably be something like this dot remove spell. Sure. I'll just do that so we can read it. How's that sound? Can we at least make it call that function even if we can't make that function do what it's supposed to do? Say remove spell. That's going to be an event handler, right? So EV. Let's at least make this say delete, please. See if that works. Let's check out our console. Okay, we have it at least doing that when we click the button. That's something. Emily, when you did on click, where did you put that code? Did you put it like right where you created it?
I put it in handle submit under the list.removeChild.
Okay, so right after you append it to the thing. Okay. Yep, that'll work. All right, so how do we make this actually do the thing? I think I saw your hand, Sam.
What I did was, in order to, so are we deleting it from the HTML or deleting it from the spell list right now?
Both ideally, but do removing it from whichever you think is easier.
Okay, so with removing it from the spells, what I did was I just added another field, delete button, which was the index of the spell that it's referencing in the spells list. So then you could just in the button you could just get the index and then delete it that way.
Okay, you added the index where?
To the delete button object there.
As what, a property or an attribute or?
Delete button dot spell index equals something. So.
Okay, so basically as a property, yeah, that you can do that.
And then with deleting it from the HTML, my code was kind of inefficient, so I technically didn't have to do it because what I did was I just removed it from the spell, then built the whole sorted spell list and added them all again.
Oh, okay.
So, but I'm pretty sure when you get the parent element and then remove the child, that is the delete button. Or
Right. Yeah, you can do something like that.
Yeah.
Yep. Who else? All right, what'd you do? Ferris?
So I did it a little bit differently. So I started off by getting the parent of the delete button.
Okay.
And then I got the parent of the list item that the delete button and the text contents are contained in. And then I basically took that parent and I removed it, like the unordered list, and I removed its child. And so inherently that would remove the contents of the list item because you're removing the list item.
Right, you're removing the list time. Yeah, you know.
And then I also, in the same function, I also used splice.
Array splice, sure.
And I got the index of
Right, sure. Okay, so starting at the beginning there, you said the first thing you did was get the parent. How'd you even do that much?
Oh, I started off. Well, the very first thing I did was I did ev.target.
Okay, so event.target in here. Let's just see what that is.
I think we still need to do prevent default, right?
It's not a submit button. So buttons that are not inside forms don't do anything by default. So yeah, we don't actually have to do that. So let's see what the event target is. Event target is the button. Okay, great. So you said we could get the parent.
Yeah, and then after that I
Mm-hmm.
which is the list item.
Okay. So the parent of that would be the list itself. Let me think here. We got the list earlier, right here. So to get the list item, we just had it. The way our HTML is structured right now, let's see here. Right now, the button's parent is the LI. But if I added more buttons, I'd probably put some sort of container around all the buttons. What I wish I could do is say, check my parent, see if it's the list item. If not, check its parent, see if it's the list item, and use it. See what I'm getting at? I want to be able to search up the tree until I get to the thing that is actually the list item that I want to remove, without knowing how many levels are in between the button and the list item. Then there is a function for doing that. It's called closest. If we look that up, JavaScript, DOM, closest, element closest, there we are. Returns the closest ancestor of the current element, or the current element itself, which matches the selectors given in parameter. So you pass in a selector the way you do with query selector. And instead of checking the whole document for that selector, it checks the element that you called it on and sees if that matches. If it doesn't, it checks its parent, its container. If that matches, it returns it. If not, it checks its parent. That way there could be any number of levels in between these two things. So if we say, just to make it easy for ourselves, I'll say const button equals ev.target. Then I'll say const item equals button.closest. Then I'll pass it the selector dot spell, because I put dot spell on the list item, right? That way I could also change the list item to some other kind of element later if I wanted to. If it were a div, wouldn't matter. The point is it's the thing that represents the spell, the thing that I'm trying to remove from the page. So what this function is going to do is check the button itself. Does it have a class of spell? Nope. Check its parent. That's the LI. Does it have a class of spell? Yep. That's the thing I'm looking for. Return it. So now I've got the item itself, and I just want to remove that from the page. Dot remove. Fingers crossed. Boop. Deleted. Yep. So is that a real thing? Remove, node remove child, child node remove. Removes the object from the tree it belongs to. Seems legit. Get an element, call remove on it. Seems legit to me. Looks like no support in Internet Explorer. It says no support on mobile Safari, but there is support on desktop Safari. That's kind of funny. There was also removeChild, which you just have to have its parent. Kind of silly that you have to do that, but it just said, what was it, parent node? Is that what you said?
Sorry.
Parent node to get the parent?
Yeah.
Parent note dot remove child item. More complicated way of saying the same thing with better browser support. Let's add more just to make sure we're always adding the right thing. Maybe if I actually wrote things I could recognize. Delete, delete. I see no errors or anything. Delete, delete. Seems to work. Remove it from the page. To remove it from the array then, what do we do? The array is this dot spells, right? So we know we want to say this dot spells dot splice. How do we know which one? Yeah. Close. Index of whatever the object is, if we have the object. So when we add this event listener, we're inside render item, which has the spell right here, right? The spell's right there. If only we could pass that as an argument to remove spell. We could. How could we do that? How could we pass it as an argument to remove spell? Anybody think of a way we can do that? Yeah.
We could use the bind thing from before.
We could use the bind thing. That works. Anybody know another way? So doing bind, of course you could say you could actually bind this to something else if you wanted to. But we wouldn't have to bind it to the spell. We wouldn't have to set it to this. We could still just bind it to this. And then, interesting thing about bind, any additional arguments you pass to bind get sent as arguments to the function. So I could say bind this comma spell, and then what happens is remove spell here will actually receive the spell as an argument. It is an event handler. It will always receive the event. The event always comes last, by the way. If you use bind to pass in arguments, they'll always come at the beginning, and the event that automatically gets passed in will come at the end. So we could do it this way. So we could say const I equals this dot spells dot index of spell. Splice I, that's where we want to start removing, and then the number of items we want to remove is 1. Let's see. Remove from the DOM. Oops. Remove from the array. See if it works. Fireball. Mimic. Telepathy. Let's check our array. App.spells. There we go. We got 3 things in there. Let's delete mimic. Let's check our spells again. There we go. It removed the right one. Anybody think of another way we can do this? Yeah.
What I did is I took the sorry, yeah, okay. So what I did was I accessed this dot spells, the array, and then I used splice like you did, but instead I did as the first argument this dot spells dot index of the parent. So in this case it would be the list item.
So did you make the array contain the actual DOM elements as opposed to those objects? Okay, yeah, if you did it that way, yeah. The idea is to store these objects in the array, but yeah, that's fine too. So another way we could have done this, you can leave it like this. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. What if our event handler were an arrow function? And inside the arrow function, we call this dot remove spell and pass the argument that we want. Right? That's another way we could have passed an argument to that thing. Just make remove spell not the actual event handler and pass in an argument that way. Another way we might have done the same thing. Good trick to have. We can use bind this time. Cool. Add a working delete button to each spell.